Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off of issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show. Good morning, my friends. It's Friday. Stand by for news. That's what we're doing today. We got we got a lot of stuff to cover on today and talk about in relation to gun rights and the Second Amendment. And I got like 53 tabs up at the top of my browser today, all the different stories that we could talk about. Because this is the one day a week that we dedicate to discussions of the Second Amendment and gun rights and gun laws and what's happening around the country. And just a plain old hoedown of discussions and talk. You know, think of it like the old grumpy old men sitting around the pot-bellied stove at the hardware store, or hanging around the water cooler at work. We're just going to have a discussion about all the stuff that's going on out there, and we're going to talk about it. The best thing about Friday, of course, is that I love to talk with you, our listeners. So if you would like to sound off, we would love to hear what you guys have to say. The phone lines are already open this morning and ready to go. All you got to do is dial it up, 319-527-3864. Any firearms-related topic, even tangentially, would be fantastic to talk with you about today. This is my favorite day of the week. I like to call it my 2-hour therapy session. Although it's not quite a full 2 hours, but that's okay, because at the end we finish up with Willie Waffle from wafflemovies.com, who comes on board to share with us the weekend movie review kind of, thing, the deal, the gives us it's a different twist. It leaves us on an up note. We talk about some fun stuff, some entertainment stuff and everything. So that's what's on the show today. I've got no guests, just you and me, but there's a ton of stories out there. And of course, we've got the phone lines for you to help drive the bus this morning on anything that's going on. So if you've got a thought, if you've got a story, if you've got a local show or something that's going on out there you want to tell people about for get-togethers or whatever, let us know. We're all about that here this morning. What are some of the stories we're going to cover? Well, we're winning some stuff out here. There's some good news down in Kentucky, where the Second Amendment apparently still lives and breathes. A former superintendent has had charges against him dismissed. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The ATF has decided to they're putting together an exhibit that's just begging for a response. Begging for a response. They're putting together an exhibit in their D.C. headquarters, we'll talk about this. Faces of gun violence. We'll talk about that. And one of the parents of a Parkland victim asked some pretty stiff questions on Twitter over that. We'll see what happens there. Gavin Newsom's constitutional amendment has gone down in flames, surprising absolutely no one. We'll give some details on that. And the fact that a Minnesota Democrat was caught and arrested with burglary. And now the Minnesota Assembly, the state body, is desperately trying to keep her in office because she is the deciding vote on so many different things. But it's, man, politics, dude, politics. She is an anti-gun lawmaker who is about to go to jail for burglary. There's some irony in that right there. I'm just throwing that out there. And the fact that Elon Musk and Australian politicians are butting heads. In fact, there's been a bit of a feud going back and forth with Musk and the Australians. The Australians have gotten a lot more. I think the word despotic is a little heavy, but they're showing their totalitarian, or they're stretching their authoritarian legs. Maybe that's how I should say it. They're stretching their authoritarian tendencies out there, and have been doing so since the beginning of COVID. If you were following anything that was going on in Australia during COVID, you saw some things that were a little bit shocking to the system for those of us who expect Australia to be, just a funky talking version of the United States, which it's not, by the way. But that's kind of the impression, right, that many of us get. Well, they're making some waves, and it should be interesting. But Elon Musk now in a bit of a fight with some of the folks over there in Australia, and we'll get into a bit of that. Why? It all stems again from the authoritarian tendencies that we're seeing from people in Australia. And Musk, although he is not a perfect free speech guy, he's doing some interesting stuff. So we're going to talk about that as well. All right. 319-527-3864. Phone lines are open, and we've got a caller here from Fairbanks. So let's go over there and see what they have to say right now. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's Murphy calling from the Denali Borough area.
Well, hello, Murph. What's on your mind, my dear?
I just find the contrast between two different school shootings kind of interesting. The parents of the one boy where they bought him a gun, and they ended up both parents are going to jail for it and stuff like that. But remember a few months back when the 17-year-old who was getting bullied, and then they started bullying his sister, and the parents had gone to the school and talked to him about it, and nothing was done? You don't hear anything more about that. And I just find that rather interesting because this was a thing where the parents were engaged and they were trying to get help for their children. And it was pretty much ignored. And the 17-year-old finally, when they started bullying his little sister, went in, and I think he ended up shooting 4 people because of it.
Right.
And I just find it interesting that, other than that short period of time, you never hear anything more about it.
Right.
So
well, it's possible.
I will listen to what you've got to say.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Murph. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conundrum because you've got that whole thing where if it doesn't match
all participants are muted.
If it doesn't match the narrative, they really don't want to handle it. If it doesn't match exactly with what they have going on, they don't want to cover it or give it any insight. There was a shooting that happened. Let me pull back on the date. I was reviewing this yesterday, and I'm in the wrong. Let me do this right here. Switch this over. I was reviewing this yesterday that there was a shooting down in Not Tennessee. Where was it? Balderdash. I can't, I don't see where it was right there. Anyway, there was a shooting down in Memphis, Tennessee, that went on, and it received zero national coverage. We actually did hear about it, and block party. Okay. So we actually did hear about it, but it wasn't listed as a mass shooting. It was called instead a block party. So here's how the headlines read. Is there a mass shooting? Well, by every definition, yes. By every definition, when there were 2 people killed, 6 people injured, 7 people were hurt in this regard. Yeah, that pretty much that's when there were hundreds of people, and the audio from it, you can hear that there were multiple rounds expended in the audio of it. But this is how the news media reports it. At least 2 killed and 6 others wounded in Memphis block party. Shooting at Memphis block party leaves 2 people dead and 6 injured. 9 people shot, 2 dead over Orange Mound block party. The Memphis block party, at least 2 killed, Memphis block, and the police chief comes out and says this was a block party. Now, the video, if you watch the video of the event, this wasn't a block party. Now, she said that it was an unregistered block party or unlicensed block party. But the problem is that it wasn't a block party. It was a street takeover where they were in the street, blocking the streets. They were running, cars were doing donuts, and there were men and people, people standing around holding ARs and AKs over their heads, reminiscent of, a Ramadi street market or something. And then suddenly shots broke out. Now, none of that made it into the mainstream news. None of that made it into any of the stuff that happened in the mainstream news. Why? Well, could it be because it was the demographic of the people of who it was? Because it was young people? Because it was a street takeover by a minority? Because it was, the demographics of income for these people who were down there? Or is it just it didn't match the demo for what they conceived to be about it? I mean, it's crazy. But this is what went on. And you can find all the videos about it are out there, and you can see them all. You could see everything that went on there. And you can see exactly how it happened. It's really, really crazy but that's what happens with the news media. That's what happens with the news media. If it doesn't match their narrative, then they're just not going to cover it. And that's, so it's not surprising, Murph, that this kind of stuff is happening. Not surprising at all. So, all right, we're up against the break. Phone lines are still open at 319-527-3864, 319-527-3864. We're going to be back in just a moment. It is Firearms Friday. You know it. You know it. We will continue in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back with more. We'll return right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Well, I finally found the video. I mean, you know, when you're under pressure, I couldn't get the. All right. So I got the link here. I'm going to drop this link in the chat room. You can watch this, right? Oh, did Brian already drop it in there? I don't know. There's the video that I was watching that's got all the links to all the different stuff and things about that shooting specifically. That's the Langley Outdoors one. I don't know if that was the same one, Brian. I'm refreshing to see if it's the same one. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. Two different ones. I see it's a different one, but yeah, I mean, watch this video is just, I mean, it's just astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing to watch this. And the narrative is what? Why do they not report on this? Why do they not talk about this one? Why did not this one not get the headlines? For the same reason that the shooter in, was it Buffalo? The Buffalo shooter, where he was a black man with racist tendencies, wanted to go in and shoot up a bunch of people, and that story died super quickly because the demographic of the shooter didn't match what the news media expected. I mean, does anybody ever really talk about the San Bernardino shootings anymore? The one that happened at YouTube and Google? Right? Because that was a husband and wife jihadi team, but nobody really talks about that one because it doesn't match the narrative. I mean, it happens, right? I mean, it doesn't match what they want, so that story dies. It's very, very frustrating. Richard says, I wonder how the media will respond when the Cowboys versus illegals incident starts popping off. I mean, I think in some cases it has. There's this court case of the farmer or the rancher down in Arizona who's, who apparently shot the illegal on his property, although I think he's going to have a tough time because, I mean, I think he's going to have a tough time. You got to really know you got to know what you're doing before you, to defend yourself. You got to know the law. You can't just arbitrarily walk around, playing whack-a-mole with people. That's not how it works. You got to have legal standing, and you got to have the law on your side. And so you got to be careful on that situation. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But this story here, about this Memphis block party is just amazing. And this guy over at Langley Outdoors Academy, he does a really good job of laying it out like piece by piece. And it's pretty good. He's got he's got links to every piece of video that he uses in his own video. So it's a pretty slick bet. Should go check it out. Memphis Block Party. That's what it was all about. Okay. Where are we at? Delaware seeking to redefine the term firearm, but that might actually be a good thing because their current definition of firearm in state law could include things like a paint gun, not a paintball gun, but a paint gun, and a slingshot. They may need to check their definition on that. So we'll consider that as well. And then anything else that you guys want to we'll see what it goes at. Oh, was a mistrial declared on that? Okay, good. I wasn't I was following it a little bit, but I hadn't got to the end yet. So we'll see we'll see where that goes. So they declared a mistrial. They're going to retry it. Does anybody know? We'll see. Mistrial was declared. The judge declared a mistrial, but does that mean that he's out of the woods? But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. It's Friday, baby. Doesn't get much better than that. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
I mean, penguins are overrated. I mean, they are. You put a penguin in a tight space and they will mess you up, man. Assault penguins. That's what we need to get a t-shirt. This is assault penguins. Ban assault penguins. Sorry. I'm amusing myself this morning. It's just one of those days. It's the end of the week. It's been a long 2 weeks and I'm ready for banning assault penguins. I think it's a good call. All right. Well, what should we talk about here for just a minute? I think we're going to talk about this because, don't start that, says Rick. The environmentalists would be all over you. Hey, I'm not saying kill them. I'm just saying ban the assault penguins. Okay, ban them. They should just be banned. Put into a place where, only those that are trusted can actually have access to the assault penguins. That's what we're trying to do right now. Definitions matter. Verbiage matters. The actual words of a law matter. I mean, we've seen that now with Bruin and with the ATFs trying to redefine, what a gun is, with the 80%, the ghost guns, the lowers, the pistol braces, the bump stocks. We've seen all that. That verbiage, that those tiny words, those words in law, that they actually matter. And you'll notice that as you read different pieces of legislation or anything like that, that they, include some kind of definition or defining in the terms, right? This is where you get the definition of like an assault weapon or a high capacity magazine, right? You get those kind of definite. Although I really take issue with the whole idea of a high capacity. It's a standard capacity magazine. A 30-round magazine for an AR is a standard capacity magazine. If you said to me, grab a high capacity magazine for your AR, I'm going to grab a Betamax, which is like a 100-round drum magazine, right? Same thing for an AK. If you said get a high capacity, I would get a drum magazine because the standard capacity magazine is 30 rounds. It's not, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidebar, but I mean, again, definitions matter. And the left has been very good, by the way, at not in the legal sense of actual legal definitions, but in the public square, in the discourse of the public square, they've done a very good job of capturing the language over the years. They're very, very good at that. Again, what is an assault weapon? I mean, for years, we really didn't have a good definition. And to this day, we still it's multiple definitions. What is it? Well, it encompasses pretty much anything that they want it to be. That's kind of a success in that regard. Anyway, but if you look in law, there are definitions. Different levels of government may have different, definitions for various things. And again, the definitions matter. Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms talks about this. He says, for example, the federal definition of a machine gun, which is a firearm capable of firing more than one round with a single pull of the trigger, doesn't actually apply to the first machine gun ever produced, the Gatling gun. Why? Because the Gatling gun doesn't have a trigger. It has a crank. There's no trigger. You just crank it. So it's technically not a machine gun. But in Delaware, they define the term firearm rather broadly. I mean, like I was just saying earlier, like so broadly that your paint gun, not paintball gun, but I'm painting the side of the house with a paint gun. that could technically be covered under a firearm. A slingshot could be technically a firearm in the state of Delaware. Delaware's over... This is from the Center Square. Delaware's overly broad firearms laws encompass a range of non-lethal weapons from slingshots to paint guns, according to critics who are pushing for changes in state law. A Republican-led proposal being considered by the legislature's Judiciary Committee would redefine a firearm as, quote, a weapon from which a shot, projectile, or other object is designed or made readily be converted to be discharged by force of an explosive, whether operable, inoperable, loaded, or unloaded. Now, this proposal, if approved, would also create a new category of projectile weapons that include bows, crossbows, crossbow bolts, spear guns, air guns larger than .177 caliber, among other items. Under the state's criminal code, the firearm includes any weapon from which a shot, projectile, or any other object may be discharged by force of combustion, explosion, gas, and or mechanical means, whether operable or inoperable, loaded or unloaded. So that's where they say this is this huge, broad thing that any weapon from which a shot, projectile, or any other object, like paint, could be discharged by mechanical means, explosions, gas, whatever. The Department of Justice has been reluctant to support the changes in the state of Delaware. Why? Well, because the broad definition gives prosecutors a wide amount of latitude to charge people with firearms crimes, even when a gun was not involved. Oh, wait, they want to make it easier for themselves to... Oh, that would never happen. They want to make it easier for themselves to charge people with crimes? Come on, that wouldn't go on, would it? Now, the Delaware Assembly is heavily Democratic, which says this may be dead on arrival. But on the other hand, they may just do it, because if they want to keep criminals off the street or out of the prison, which seems to be a lot of the Democratic, that seems to be a lot of their leaning, then they could say, well, this is going to put a lot of people behind bars, and we can't do that. So we'll just see what happens. But Delaware is going to change their definition of firearm, which seems reasonable. If you're talking about a sling or a paintball or a paint gun, not a paintball gun, but a paint gun. Here I am. Criminal comes up and attack me while I'm painting my house, and I spray him with a paint gun. Now it's a firearm? Okay. All right. Maybe it's time to have that definition updated. I'll just say that for nothing. All right, let's go over to the phones. I see our good friend Fred is up and about, calling in from Rhode Island. Good morning, Fred. How are you this morning? What's happening, my friend?
Mike, you just mentioned Delaware. Delaware is like Rhode Island and a lot of other places in the Northeast and around the country, especially in the Democratic realm of their existence. They sit there and they try to play this one-upmanship. I know it's a big thing over here in Rhode Island. This is what they like to do. The smallest state, they try to make the biggest roar. By doing a one-upmanship. The definition has already been defined. I mean, firearm is a device that fires it expels a projectile through a chemical reaction. Which is gunpowder.
Right.
And to try to change that around to include everything else is just one-upmanship. It's like this is the flavor of the week game is what it boils down to.
Well, and
more attention to
the interesting part here is that
that's basically all it is. It's a lot of garbage.
Well, the interesting part here is that in Delaware, it's already broad. That's the thing. They're trying to change it to narrow it down, because as of right now, you spray somebody with a paint gun while you're painting, and you could be charged with assault with a firearm, because the paint gun could be. This is already in law. This has been in law for years, apparently, and they're trying to narrow it down. Somebody just mentioned that Joe Biden is from Delaware. Maybe that explains it. Maybe that's where he got all his great firearms advice, right, Fred?
Well, really, advice. Joe Biden is kind of like a contradiction. However, it boils down to. I got a new term for you. Not to change the subject, but I got a brand new term that I heard earlier in the week. and I was really impressed with it. It's called hoplophobia. Are you familiar with it?
Oh yeah, Jeff Cooper termed the term hoplophobia a long time ago. There's a lot of people out there who are hoplophobic. Absolutely.
Yeah, and and the whole hoplon, which is define the liking or the desire to be to associate with weapons. Hoplon shall not be infringed.
Right.
Next T-shirt.
Yeah, Jeff Cooper talked about hoplophobia
this whole thing is crazy. That's going on, and it boils down to a lot of other things. Not only just firearms, but everything that's going on with this campus unrest, with the the whole Palestinian nonsense and protests going on. And you can see it's a globalist. It's definitely got the globalist twinge to it. You can see George Soros and his crazy kid behind this throwing money at it, and lots and lots of money at it, along with a lot of other globalists throwing at it. And they're just promoting this nonsense. It's just like I say, it's a political, the whole gun control thing, the whole hoplophobic concept is just a political push for a greater agenda. Fueled by the globalist, the globalist agenda. That's basically, the avenue you go down on there, it seems to come back to the same place.
The whole push again to disarm folks is because they believe that they know better than us how we should live our life, and because we have the ability to push back through this implicit, that's an implied threat. It's not an overt threat. We're not marching downtown with our guns and rifles, shaking them at them, because they're just sitting in the closet back at home, and it's this implicit threat that you can only go so far. That's what they don't like. They want, this is about control. It's about, that's the whole thing. It's about control and power, and they believe that they know better than you how you should live your life, and they've got a plan for everybody. And because we won't get on board with the plan, and because we could push back because we're an armed society, that makes them nervous. And that's why you see this continuous push for that kind of stuff to go on, because they believe it.
It boils down to the players. It really boils down to the players. Soros, Bloomberg, that other clown down there in Florida, I forget his name begins with an S, Swami or something like that. These billionaires, they get lousy ideas and an unlimited bank account, and they can just sit there, and their whole concept is let's just burn the whole thing to the ground and build it up again. But who's going to be on the top of the totem pole when they build it up again?
Well, sure.
So you can see this is definitely beyond politics. This is like greed, self-motivated greed to wind up controlling, driving the bus is what it boils down to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I agree with that. And you see it. And it's especially prevalent in states like where you're at, Rhode Island, Delaware, Connecticut. All these East Coast states where it used to be, these were the states that were the freedom states to begin with, as the first original colonies. And they're the ones that are the most heavily regulated now in this regard. And if you don't comply, they're going to come down on you on a ton of bricks, right?
Sure, they've been bought out. They have been paid off, bought out in the political, arena. These politicians, these Democrat progressive politicians want to keep their jobs, and the only way to keep their jobs is they got to get this heavy money coming in from these billionaires, these anti-gun globalist billionaires. And it's I won't say it's a conspiracy, but boy, I'll tell you, it's the closest thing to it if it isn't.
Yeah, no.
It's just nonsense.
Well, yeah,
like you say, control.
I don't believe that it's a conspiracy, because I think the problem is that there's just not enough effective coordination to make it. But I think that there's a lot of people that believe the same thing, that they basically believe that the only way society can move forward is with the direct benevolent intervention of government. And those people like you and me who just won't get with the program, we need to be taught a lesson, be forced to get with the program. And if we didn't have our firearms to protect ourselves, they could make us do it. Again, I don't think it's a conspiracy or some kind of really super organized thing. I think there's a lot of people that believe stuff very similar.
Probably along the lines of a campaign, like I say, hoplophobia.
Right, exactly.
You see it in the grade schools today. Guns are terrible. People who own guns are, bad. Orange man bad.
Right.
Conservatives bad. People who believe in religion bad. This is the kind of nonsense you see. But they're promoting this, and I don't see a lot of opposition to it. Like I said,
right.
You mentioned to it. The Republicans are probably just as bad as the Democrats in that respect.
Right.
Democrats are the ones who want to burn down the world, and the Republicans are just sitting on the sidelines with the, watching the show without doing
Right.
anything.
No, and you're right. The hoplophobia is real. I mean, for those of you who don't know, hoplophobia is the fear, the nascent fear of firearms, of an armed person. That's what hoplophobia is. It makes no sense. I mean, again, this comes back to the anthropomorphizing of the firearm. I mean, right? We see that all the time, Fred, when some young thug gets his hands on a gun at the age of 17 or 16 or 17, goes in, becomes a home invader, gets shot by the homeowner, and then his mother gets up there and said, Johnny was such a good boy. He was a Heisman Trophy winner, and he was top of his class until that gun showed up, and now it's the gun's fault that, no, Johnny was a thug the whole time. It just gave him power that he went out and exercised. There should be no fear of the gun. There should be fear of a fatherless society. That's what we have a problem with right now. This lack of.
I think if there's any fear, it should be fear from these crazy Soros-backed, district attorneys who sit there and do the catch and release.
Well,
I can't see how these people get away with it.
No, I know. Well, you just saw this in.
Sit on that panel.
Yeah, you just saw this in San Francisco, right? Where they blocked the Golden Gate Bridge. All these pro-Palestinian people were just heated about it, and then the DA lets them go the next day after arresting 114 of them or something. The DA just like, no, we're going to let them all go. All right, hold the line for just a sec, Fred. We're up against the break. Folks, we got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. I want to give Fred the final word here this morning because, I mean, you're 100% right, Fred. I mean, we've got a country that is fundamentally they're forcing our divisions in there, right? I mean, we could get along in so many ways, but the news media and the elites who are forcing these changes on things and trying to divide us are doing a pretty damn good job. And of course, the big thing they want to divide us and they want to get us away from is firearms, because again, it's the one thing that holds an oppressive government regime at bay, is an armed citizenry, and they want to get that, but they know they can only go so far. It's a tough time. I'll give you final thoughts on it. Oops, I'm sorry, Fred. I forgot to.
Line and sinker. They have been, they bought the whole farm on that, the whole anti-gun program, the whole anti-gun concept, and control over the populace. And they're trying to, and they definitely got the hooks into it here. But like I say, they're starting out with, in the grade schools, they're trying to terrorize these children, keep them, every time there's a school drill, it destroys their whole sanctity and, security and, trying to, keep them all on edge. And it's wrong. It's just definitely wrong what they're doing. It's terrible. It's just, it has to be some type of a call out. I think like Soros should be called before Congress. Bloomberg should be called before Congress, and definitely grill them, with the penalty of perjury, that they will disclose all their money going to different organizations, whether it be the anti-Semite, the pro-Palestinian movements, gun control, moms demand action. These people are funded, and they claim to be grassroots, but they're a funded organization. Who are they kidding?
Right.
We know. I know that for a fact.
Well, I've got no problem with people
receiving checks on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I got no problem with people funding stuff with their money, but don't try and fundamentally change the fabric of the nation with all the different, usurpations and everything else. And again, this idea that somehow if they just took all the guns away, they could make us do what we need to do and get with the program. That's what's, that's the only thing. And I think we'll talk about that there in the next segment. Just this implicit threat and the history of the Second Amendment. That's what's kept us as free as we are right now. Well, Soros couldn't be in prison. Terry just said Soros should be in prison for treason. Well, he's not an American citizen, so you're going to have a hard time getting him in prison for treason. He's not.
Well, the World Court, if nothing else,
Yeah,
definitely before the World Court, because it's not only the United States,
Yeah.
it's worldwide. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy's throwing billions of dollars all over the place, you know, and he's created all kinds of problems. You know, he's a world-class anarchist, if nothing else.
Yeah.
He is definitely a world-class anarchist.
All right. Well, Fred, it's good to talk with you, my friend. Thank you for calling in this morning. We look forward to talking with you again next week. Have a great weekend.
You have a good week. Take care, Mike.
All right. Thanks so much. Fred in Rhode Island with us here this morning. All right. We're going to get freeze frame. Don't move? What? That's it exactly, says Jeannie. If you can't rebel, you are a subject. That's the difference between a subject and a citizen. Quite honestly, citizen has a say in what's going on. And in this case, the implicit say, you know, definitely good stuff. All right. Why am I hearing the dink, dink, dink? Weird. Well, that's odd. Oh, I know why. Because my phone was connected to this. Like, why am I hearing that? I should never hear that. All right. What else you guys got to talk about here today? What other story? I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this thing with Elon Musk because it is crazy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should be checking your baggage. The question is, should your EDC bag, should your everyday get home bag be the same bag that you use when you travel across the country or out of the country? I'm going to say that the answer to that is no, but we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then we'll get on to this whole discussion about Elon Musk, Australian politicians, the right to keep and bear arms, and more. Because that is some important, and I think it points back to what Fred was just talking about. You know, these politicians keep wanting to again disarm us and do all this kind of stuff, but nobody is willing to go all the way. Because they can't. Because again, because of the Second Amendment, they can't go as far as they want to go, and the founders and framers understood that. So we'll continue this discussion. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff, the YouTube-y, the things, the stuff and things, Lori. Do it all. Let's get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. I'm ready.
What the hell is an assault weapon? Does that mean that if we hurt your feelings, you should funny?
Kind of a what? I mean, okay. All right. Can't believe I paid that guy. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. Oh yeah, Brian. Dang, I forgot to grab that story. I was going to grab that story this morning. Brian in the chat room just said, but there's a courtroom in New York where the Second Amendment doesn't exist. And that's an actual thing. There's a judge in New York who actually got out and said the Second Amendment doesn't exist in her courtroom. And I'm like, what? I mean, what? What? That was kind of a shocking thing. Let me look, see if I can find. Yeah. So the Colio Noir said Colio Noir had the video on this. A New York judge has convicted a man over his gunsmithing hobby, and basically said, don't bring the Second Amendment into this courtroom. It doesn't exist here. So you can't argue Second Amendment. This is New York. To which I said, what? I mean, isn't New York still a part of the United States? I'm just asking for a friend. I mean, if isn't it the, I mean, we're still all part of it, right? This is New York. That's the whole Second Amendment. There's the whole supremacy thing and everything else. Doesn't that, no, it's okay. Anyway, that is an interesting story, which if we have enough time, we'll get into here later today. And we'll see. And this was an 80% gun case. This was one of the 80% the guy was building. He's a hobbyist building firearms. And they said, it doesn't even exist. Just move along here. Move along. Judge Abina Darka. Do not bring the Second Amendment into this courtroom. Okay. All right. Well, good to see that whole rule of law thing, doesn't belong in the courtroom as well. It's, I mean, this is my courtroom. No rules, no laws in here at all. All right. So one of the big questions that we talk about in regards to preparedness and other things is, creating your get home bag and, having a emergency kit in your truck or your car or whatever to make sure that you can get home if something happens or if a breakdown or, you get stranded or, the zombies come or whatever it is. And the big question, of course, about that is, should you have firearms? The answer is yes. And what kind of firearms? And that answer depends. But one of the things that this creates is another question about whether or not you should use your daily EDC carry or get home bag, if you should ever use it for regular travel outside the state or outside the U.S., meaning, I got to travel down to Washington or I got to go to Vegas or I got to go to Florida. Should I unpack all my EDC stuff out of my bag and use it as a carry-on? I'm thinking more and more the answer is no. And why do I say that? Well, it's a good question. The Second Amendment Foundation is advising all U.S. gun owners to avoid travel to the Turks and Caicos Islands in the Caribbean after an Oklahoma couple was stopped and arrested at an airport when security officials discovered 4 rounds of ammunition in their luggage. The TSA here in the United States apparently missed the ammunition. Shocking, I know. And as Ryan and Valerie Watson were on their way to the islands, and now Ryan is facing up to 12 years in prison for possessing unlawful hunting rounds. They said that they had their lives turned upside down when they tried to return home as local airport security found 4 rounds of ammunition unknowingly left in a duffel bag from a deer hunting trip. It was not noticed by TSA when leaving America, and now they're facing a legal system that is unfamiliar, daunting, and expensive that operates different from the American justice system. The U.S. Embassy in the Bahamas issued a travel alert in September telling Americans not to bring ammunition into the islands. Okay. According to SAF, at least 8 American tourists have been charged with violating the island's gun control laws since 2022 for accidentally leaving ammo in their luggage. As the court hearing on Wednesday, Ryan Watson was told he could be freed on $15,000 bail, but cannot leave the islands and must report to police twice a week until his case goes to trial. I mean, this is just, check your luggage before you travel. I have an easier answer. Just don't use the same bags that you use hunting for to go traveling with. I mean, I'm just saying. That makes it. I actually went through something very similar about 35 years ago. I had a bag that I was carrying that, unbeknownst to me, had 2 rounds of 30-06 in the very bottom of the bag. And I went through multiple airports until I reached the, I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't LAX. It was the, Bob Hope International, the one that's in the one that's north. Not Bakersfield. Anyway, I ended up at the airport and they got me. They're going through the security checkpoint. I mean, this was on a carry-on, folks. This was not in my checked luggage. This was on a carry-on. I'd made it through like 4 flights. And they found these 2 rounds. And I'm like, oh, man, I used this bag for hunting like a year ago, and I didn't realize they were in there. Just an honest mistake, right? Nothing. And they were giving me the 5th degree. And then I made the mistake of saying, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Put it into this. I had a CD player. Put it into this CD player and use it. She goes, that's a joke. I could put you in. She goes, that's a terroristic threat. I'm like, it's hyperbole. Anyway, it made me really cautious. I very much either tear my bags completely apart or I just use another bag usually. I just have another bag for traveling because you do not want to get caught. $15,000 bail and up to 15 years in prison because there were some hunting rounds in your bag. Not a good. And the TSA didn't catch any of it. It was caught by the Caribbean officials. It was caught by them, not by any of the how many TSA things did you go through before you got there? And anyway, this zero tolerance does not make me want to jump into the thing and run right out to the Turks and Caicos and fly out there and do my thing, right? I mean, that's just nutty. All right. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of the second as a deterrent. And we're going to talk about Elon Musk and his beef with Australia. Yeah, I mean, they may not let him back in the country after this. He's got some things to say, and they're pretty rough. They're pretty rough. And they don't seem to like him over there. But see, they're stretching their authoritarian tendencies out. And he's not having any of it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's all coming up in the next hour. Plus, Willie Waffle will join us for the weekend movie review, The Michael Duke Show. I saw this story, but it was attempt to smuggle ammunition. Oh, God. That's what they were calling it? 4 rounds? I was attempting to smuggle 4 rounds of the... Back with more of The Michael Duke Show. Right. Those 4 rounds could be used to take over the entire island. I mean, he's got nothing to use them in, but, that was my joke. Literally, I was so frustrated because they were just absolutely broiling me over these 2 rounds. Maybe it was 1 round. I can't remember. It was like 1 or 2 rounds of 30-06 in this bag. And it was at what is the hell is the name of that airport that is north of LAX? It's on the north side of LA, and it's like the Bob Hope, or what is it? Bob Hope Airport. Burbank. Thank you. There we go. So it was at Burbank. I was landing in Burbank. And this gal was just giving me the 5th degree. And this is all pre 9/11. I mean, this is like back in the day, right? And I just said, look, I'm from Alaska. I had used this bag for hunting a year ago, and it must have fallen out of the little pouch where they were. I didn't realize it was in there. You could check everything else. You see, I have absolutely nothing else. And she's just giving me the 5th degree about this 1 bullet. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Put it in this CD player and use it? I mean, how would I use it? And then she lost her mind. Luckily, because I was 18 or 19 and I was pissed off at this point. Anyway, they finally let me through, but I still remember that. And because of that, I always, when I put ammunition into a bag, I always make sure that it's packaged so that it can't get out and get loose. And 2, if I'm going to take a bag that I wouldn't normally take, I make sure I strip that thing down to the nitty gritty. There's nothing left in it. I make sure that there's nothing in there. Because, yeah, again, attempt to smuggle ammunition. I had to throw away so many pocket knives that I forgot in my pocket when traveling, says Alaskan. And that's, yeah, I mean, those are expensive. You only throw away $100 pocket knife before you're like, we never need to do that again. And yeah. Jeffrey said, I got held up by TSA because my coveralls in my bag had diesel on them. Oh, God. Yeah. Jeannie said, I've had to have that happen several times. It just has to go and check baggage. There's a place, I think is it in Seattle? There's actually like a little USPS or whatever, like there's like a little kiosk there where for some money you can mail your knife to yourself if you need to. I mean, we had to do that one time. My wife, I bought her this really nice case folding pocket knife that she keeps in her purse with these purple, pinkish pearl handle, really pretty. And she forgot to take it out of her bag. And so we had to do that. And yeah, it's a great deal. If you had visited a farm or even handled fertilizer, you can get nailed with a nitrate swab. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. $100 Leatherman. Yeah, those are all things that you can get nailed for. Seattle and Portland both have the kiosks. Is that right, Jeannie? Yeah. Okay. Had a dirty, hairy keychain, a 44 with a key ring through the drilled hole. They took it away when I flew back for Christmas. That was in DB Cooper days. Yeah, even a phony bullet like that. I've often thought, because they sell the jewelry where it looks like a flower, but it's an expanded bullet. You know, it's an expanded projectile. But and I always wondered if they're going to let that through TSA. It's a bullet, but I mean, it's expended and it's all. Anyway, had to dispose of a pocket knife at Six Flags in Atlanta. They wouldn't allow you to bring a pocket knife into the park. That's kind of nutty. All right. Well, Seattle and Portland. Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody could make a mint if all they had to do was just open up a little stand right near the security gate. Anything you can't bring through, come on through. We'll mail it for you. We'll just mail it right through there. We'll make it work for you. Alaska Independence says my NRA silver bullet keychain always gets pointed out, but that is an actual solid piece of metal. It's in the shape of a bullet, but it's not actually a bullet, right? It's a cast. It looks like a bullet, but it's a cast thing with a deal. Whereas some of these other keychains are an actual cartridge with a hole drilled. It doesn't matter if it's that's what they say. Anyway, they're keeping us safe, baby. That's all I'm saying. They are keeping us safe, except for all the people that missed all these bullets until these folks got to the Turks and the Caicos. So, I mean, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. I still remember coming back from Front Sight, and I'd gotten a better deal on an airline, so I'd gotten a ticket out of Flagstaff instead of out of Vegas. And so I drove back to Flagstaff after taking this course, and I had my rolling rifle case. And I said, I need you guys to check these firearms. And I opened up the case, and there were 3 TSA ladies, and they all lost their minds. Well, you can't do this. And I'm like, the regulation says I can do. And I basically quoted the regulations to all of them. And they were just in such a tizzy. And finally, this guy comes over, looks down. Yep, he's good to go. Locks it back up and takes it away. They don't even train these people, man. They don't even train these people at what the actual law is. It's hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. All right. We got to go. We'll be back with more here in just a minute. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show. Good morning, everybody across the state of Alaska. It is Friday. Stand by for news. We got all the good stuff that's fit to print, and it's ready to go. It is Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature. We've been talking about a lot of different things this morning, including these wonderful trips to everybody's telling their TSA stories now in the chat room this morning about all the crazy stuff that's been confiscated over the years. It's interesting. But the phone lines are open today, 319-527-3864. Let's go over to the phones first thing here before I jump into my next bit of news and discussion. Don't forget, Willie Waffle is going to be joining us at the end of the show this morning. Let's go over here right now and see what folks have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. This is Larry up in North Pole, Fairbanks area.
Hello, Larry. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, yeah, back in February, or maybe early March, my first cousin's nephew, high school senior, driving down the street in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and all of a sudden they started getting shot at. And he had over 20 bullet holes in the car, and one of the bullets went, after they knocked the back window out, one of the bullets hit him behind the left ear and is now lodged right above his left eyebrow in his brain. Never heard about it. Probably the reason why is that the police chief, after investigating and looking at video cameras along the street, that was gang related. You know, these high school kids, you know how kids can be. You can't tell them anything. They know everything. Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, they took a shortcut and got in the wrong territory and got shot.
Right. Right.
You never hear much about anything like that. And you know, there's all kinds of gang related killings in the big cities. You never hear about any of that either.
Well, I mean, look at what goes on in Chicago, Larry. I mean, you know, over a weekend, they'll have 30 different shootings over a weekend. I mean, and, you know, and we hear all about the different things. And there has been some estimates that the amount of crime and the amount of like homicides and things like that upwards of, you know, well over 50% of that stuff is criminal on criminal violence. So, but again, your nephew or grandnephew or whatever, I mean, he's just driving through town and people start shooting at him because he drove on the wrong street, because he took a shortcut through the wrong area. I mean, you know, that makes it okay. And they don't go after it because it's what? His fault for being a youth and going in the wrong area?
Yeah. Where's the justice?
Yeah.
But I recognize some of the law enforcement logic is let the criminals get rid of the criminals. But problem is the innocent bystanders are getting it too.
Well, yeah, that's exactly the
And,
problem.
But you were talking about the carry-on bags.
Right.
You know, I used to do IDPA, IPSC type competition, and I went to a match, and this bag had convenient little pockets, and I could stuff the magazines down in.
Right.
Well, it got bumped or something, and the cartridge was down in the bottom of one of them little bitty narrow pockets.
Right.
And I tried to go through it. Yeah. And ironically, the gal that was in charge of TSA was someone that I'd worked with about 3 years before, and she just said, "Larry, what are you doing?"
Yeah, you're lucky, Larry.
Oh.
You're lucky you didn't end up in the body cavity search room. Is what you're lucky with. That's exactly what happens there. But all right, Larry.
Yeah, but all right.
Thanks.
I'll let you go, and we'll catch up with you later, Michael.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Larry from up in North Pole calling in here this morning. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. I mean, Larry's right. I mean, there may be a temptation to say, oh, let the criminals sort the criminals out kind of thing. But the problem is that there's plenty of average law-abiding citizens who are getting in the way of that kind of stuff. And then again, we're not really, we are being penalized. We, the honest law-abiding citizens, are being penalized for the actions of these same said criminals, right? I mean, every time there's something that goes wrong or something happens, who is penalized? The average new law is passed, right? Oh, we've got to stop this from happening. There was already laws to stop all the stuff you're trying to stop from happening. You think one more law is going to stop them from doing those kind of things? Is that what you're supposing? Is that somehow one more, it was already illegal to shoot up a school bus. It was already illegal to hold up a liquor store. It was already illegal to rape, rob, and kill. But boy, we just got to do this one more law. One more law will stop it. How? If you're not willing to prosecute, you're not willing to, put the people in jail for an extended period of time and make them pay for that crime, if you're not willing to be hard on the person who's actually breaking the law and you're stuck instead on the tools or the methodology that they use to perpetrate that crime, how are you, how's that going to work? It's insane. It's insane. I mean, just you can't. This is the kind of stupid you just can't fix. That's it for sure. All right. So before the break, we were talking about this idea that the only thing holding us back here, the only thing keeping us on target and keeping us the freest nation that we are, is the fact that we are an armed society. That's the only thing keeping us going. Is that implicit, implied, not overt, not in the streets with pitchforks and torches, that implicit threat is what's keeping the authoritarian tendencies of the government at bay. Now, see, Australia, they don't have to deal with that anymore because they basically outlawed all the stuff that they got going on. And in fact, they just keep pushing that further and further down. In the wake of the knife attacks in Sydney, lawmakers seem to be on a rampage to destroy whatever rights are left in the country. They've already taken on knife control proposals. It could result in a crackdown of knife ownership in Australia. But it's also prompted a wave of criticism over the country's current laws, which it makes it incredibly difficult for the average citizen to possess a firearm and never for self-defense, no concealed carry, forget about it. But Australian politicians, it would be irresponsible not to look at toughening knife laws further, because all the laws that were on the books about assaulting people and killing people, that was already not enough. I mean, Are they gonna just call for an outright ban on any object that's sharp or pointy? I mean, forget about buttering your bread anymore. You're gonna have to use a dowel, and that dowel better not be too sharp because, pointy. But they've already touched on new proposals for knife control. And it seems that the officials also want X to take down a video of an attack in a Sydney church. They want that taken down. The attack wasn't a fatal one, but the officials still want it taken down, claiming that it may inspire new attacks. Now, Elon Musk, who owns X, formerly known as Twitter, has vowed that the platform would respect free speech, and that means he's keeping the video up. And this led to a bit of a tussle between Elon Musk and an Australian senator. Elon said, this is the MSN. Elon Musk said an Australian senator should be jailed and suggested the country's gun laws were meant to stop resistance from its fascist government, escalating his battle over a court order to remove video posts of a bishop being stabbed. Now, that's not exactly what he said, but he did share share posts that say that. I love how they said, this is what he said. No. After Australia's federal court told Musk's platform X to temporarily stop showing a video of a knife attack on an Assyrian bishop during a church service in Sydney a week earlier, Musk accused the country's leaders of trying to censor the internet, prompting an outpouring of condemnation from lawmakers. One senator, Jackie Lambie, deleted her X account on Tuesday to protest publication of the footage and called on other politicians to do the same, saying Musk has, quote, no social conscience or conscience whatsoever. She added that he should be jailed. Ooh, your authoritarian streak is really showing there. When an unnamed X user posted overnight that it was Lambie who should be in jail for censoring free speech, Musk replied to his 181 million followers, absolutely, she's an enemy of the people of Australia. Shots fired. Musk widened his attack on Australia, including promoting a post from an unnamed but verified X user, which said that the country, quote, disarmed all their citizens in 1996 so that they cannot resist their fascist government, unquote. Now, they don't have a fascist government yet. But boy, howdy, if you watch what happened in Australia over the course of the lockdowns and you see how their people were treated, they definitely were flexing those authoritarian muscles. Man, they definitely were. And, everybody keeps saying, well, we should have Australian-style gun control. That's what we should do, right? That's what we should aspire to have Australia. No, we shouldn't. And this is what drives me crazy. Why? What was this whole thing about to begin with? Well, they're telling Musk that this video's got to be taken down, right? They're telling they don't want people to watch it. Why? Why would you not want? They're trying to tell people what they can see and what they can say. That's what they're trying to do right here. There's nothing in the video that is, there's not like the would-be stabber is showing you how to, bust into a high secure facility or anything else. There's nothing. All you can see is what you've read about. Why would you do that? Well, they're going to inspire a copycat. Print has inspired more copycat than anything else in the world. But you're not. See, they want to throw their weight around. Again, their authoritarian streak is showing. Your slip is showing. Your authoritarian slip is showing. Now, again, Musk isn't perfect on free speech, but I got to respect what he's doing here. And again, it just proves yet again that most politicians, regardless of where they are, have that authoritarian slip on underneath their clothing. And at any minute, when you no longer have the ability to push back, that's going to come out and you're going to see it. And the next thing you're going to say is, oops, I guess we should have not let that second. Because what are Australians telling us now? What are Chris Howard and some of my other friends in Australia? What have they been telling us for 20 years? Don't let your Second Amendment rights go, because you'll never get them back. And he's right. It's the one thing that holds our government in check. Not through shaking my fist at them, just by quietly owning them and knowing about their use historically, legally, and mechanically. That's what it's about. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Interestingly, we don't see BLM denouncing anything. Yeah, I mean, why would they? This, again, it all plays into what they got going on. There is a method to their madness. They do not want a well-educated armed citizenry. Every time they go after our right to own and bear arms, they're breaking their oaths of service. Well, yes. I mean, that's, and living in Australia for a year, she says only gang members had guns. Well, I mean, that was it. After the 96 ban, what happened? Well, gangs were taking over in Sydney and Melbourne, and they were taking over like whole machine shops, and they were creating machine guns. That's what they were. They were building and manufacturing machine guns in machine shops. Not like little zip guns, like real on, full on. I mean, come on. Oh, man. Better ban rocks too, says Greg. If they're going to ban knives, they better ban rocks. Cain killed Abel with one. Australia is nuts. Counterpoint. Tide Pod Challenge. Oh, yeah. BLM got defunded. No, they still had the money, and the leader did take all that money and go buy. I mean, it was a scam. The whole thing was a scam. You don't see the mainstream media reporting on that much. That story went up and then died quietly and quickly because the leaders of BLM were lining their own pockets with millions of dollars. Because all those bleeding heart liberals felt guilty about their own white privilege or whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Saturday, Wasilla Restaurant, family restaurant in Wasilla, 1 to 3. Carmela Warfield will be there for a meet and greet. Come down and meet our new Republican leaders. Dang. Did somebody, Terry, if you go, would you give her my email information? Because I'll have to double check my email from yesterday, but I did not see any contact or any contact information. Somebody's going to try and send it to me. Anyway, tell her I'd love her to be on the show to talk about it. That would be good. It would be nice for someone from down under to give you a call. Let us know what's going on at this moment. You know what? I will reach back out to Chris Howard, who is a member of what is essentially the NRA of Australia. He's a good friend of mine, and he's been on the program several times. The problem is that the show time for the show is like 4 a.m. in Australia, 3 or 4 a.m. in Australia tomorrow. So, but we'll see if we can work it out. I'll send him a message. Maybe we'll get him on the program to talk about it. We'll see what's going on with that. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to have a conversation with him here. It's been a while since we've talked. I'll send him an email, message /email/ carrier pigeon. It'll be, maybe I'll do it as a pre-recorded interview or something. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. It's tough though. Because I remember the last time he was like, oh God, I'm so tired. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday or something, Anyway. Okay. Terry says she's been contacted. We'll ask her again. Okay. And maybe I'll double check my email just to make sure. But if you see her, just ask her if she did reach out to me. And if not, tell her I'd like to get her contact info and feel free to send it to me. Anyone going to Alan Dershowitz? He's in Anchorage. He is? I missed that. See, this is what happens when you don't use radio to advertise. How am I supposed to know anything? That's the thing. Okay, final segment. What should we talk about here in the final segment? What else do I have? Do we talk about that? We could talk more about the Elon Musk thing. We mentioned the Minnesota Democrat thing I don't really care about. No one's shocked. Newsom's law professor. What's it take to activate the second city judge against former school superintendent? All right, maybe we'll talk about this one. I don't know. Or whatever else you guys want to talk about. I mean, there is a phone number right here, and you can call in. You can call in. There you go. If you want to. Only if you want to. I don't want to talk to you if you don't want to talk. Don't call in just to sit there. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty makes free thinking radio. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon?
You know, if we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever bought protection guns, never murder guns. And then I lost all my protection guns in a wild boating accident on the river. It's horrible, man. I feel so bad about it. It cost me a lot of money. I just don't know if I'm ever going to buy those guns again. All right, welcome back to the program. Let's continue on here. We got a phone call or two, it looks like, coming in. And so we'll start off over there before I jump over to the rest of the show for this morning. We got Willie Waffle coming up here in a few minutes. 319-527-3864 is the number. Over here to Antioch we go. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning. You probably see my post, my comment, Henry, on your line. But you guys should read what's going on and how the Juno they're trying to push how you say it, physicians to assist kids with gender affirming care. That includes hormone replacement drugs. That's to stop. Those are crimes against humanity. You guys need to get involved and support.
Get involved in what? Get involved with what exactly, Henry? I'm sorry, I was misunderstanding. What are you concerned about with the home?
You need to get involved and stop the Alaska House from passing laws that are hurting our children, like gender affirming care. And, that's crimes against humanity. One thing you guys need to know, when that shot first came out, the Senate Health and Social Service Committee was discussing it with Dr. Zink and Commissioner Crum. And on page 132, it lists all the dangerous side effects of that shot. And we're seeing it out here. And like it's a weapon of mass destruction. And man, we're being invaded. You guys need to wake up and talk about things that are hurting us before it's too late. All I have to say, I can't speak on KYK radio because I say parents have a right to know what's being taught in their school. Because they're teaching LGBT queer theory and kids back. It's online now. And go to the troopers and tell them you gotta ask the Attorney General to put an immediate stop on any gender affirming care being done in the clinic.
Okay.
And any LGBT queer theory teachings.
Okay.
That's sexual abuse of a minor.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate it. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with firearms, but some good thoughts here from Henry out in the bush there. So thank you for calling in this morning. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you would like to come on board and join us and talk with anything that we got going on here this morning, we got a few minutes left. We'd love to hear what you guys would have to say. Some good news. The Second Amendment may not exist in a New York City courtroom, but apparently, and that's a reference to another story that we touched on earlier, but apparently in Kentucky, it still exists. A former Kentucky school superintendent who was charged with possessing a firearm on public school property had his case thrown out by a judge this week, who said prosecutors hadn't been able to show a national tradition of prohibiting firearms on all property owned by a school district. John Gunn, that's interesting. John Gunn, the former school superintendent in McCreary County, had just resigned his position in February when he went to the Board of Education office around 6 a.m. to gather his personal belongings. He was allegedly wearing a .45 caliber pistol when he showed up at the building, but he left because his access card had been deactivated and he couldn't get inside. When he returned during normal business hours, he no longer had his gun, but he was still arrested by a school resource officer when he tried once more to collect his things. Gunn's attorney argued the law was an unconstitutional infringement on his right to keep and bear arms. Hoskins cited a 2022 case in the Supreme Court that set a new standard for deciding the legality of gun restrictions, the Brune decision, and that there was no historical analog regarding carrying guns on school property as opposed to schools themselves. Because he wasn't in the school, he was apparently in the office itself. Gunn's act of carrying a gun at the school board office is not a traditional historical recognized right, they say, but that was not what it is. He unless he could show a long-standing national tradition of blocking it, then Gunn could do it. So Judge Dan Ballow cited the Supreme Court's history, text, and tradition test and dismissed the felony charge against the former superintendent. Ballow ruled the prosecution had not shown that the nation's historical tradition of regulating and possession of firearms extends to an individual carrying a firearm property not utilized as a school during a time when neither students nor employees were present and with no other alleged criminal acts being committed, regardless of the ownership of the property. This sounds like a pissing match is what it sounds like. He resigns, goes back to pick up his stuff. Somebody's deactivated his card. He had a gun on him, but it was way outside of office hours. He was trying to do it while nobody was there so he doesn't, cause some kind of conflagration. And instead, when he comes back, this time without his gun, they arrest him. Yeah, this sounds like somebody is, I can just see it happening right now. This is a case that should have never been filed to begin with. There were never any allegations that he intended to harm anybody. There was nobody there. He went to the Board of Education building early so he could collect his things so that there was no confrontation. This was simply about him possessing a firearm. And maybe, again, this was just about some kind of animosity or butthurt feelings or something between the school board and him that led to his arrest. This is now. It'll be interesting to see if the Kentucky Commonwealth Attorney will take the loss and let this be the end of the ordeal, or try and appeal this ruling. The judge made the right call in dismissing the case on Second Amendment grounds, but in this case, seriously, this is where you're going to go with this. Absolute insanity. But again, as I said, Brune is the gift that's just it's going to keep on giving. Now that it is the law of the land, and the government has to justify why they say that they need to do the things that they say. Show us a historical analog of all this stuff going down. Show us how that works. Show us how not allowing us to carry a gun within 1,000 meters of a school, 1,000 yards of a school. Tell me how that works out historically in the one-room schoolhouse in the town where most everybody was armed. Tell me why people shouldn't be allowed to own firearms or use firearms if they've ever used marijuana or alcohol. But they're not currently using it. That's still illegal. Being under the influence of a controlled substance and having a firearm is still illegal. But you're talking about just outright banning a whole group of people. And that's the analogy you're going to use? I mean, the government is not, now that the government has to justify their own actions, they're not doing a very good job of it because they cannot find historical analogies that match with what they want to do. Their answer usually is, well, just because we're the government and because we're right. And the judges are saying, no. And in fact, it's not even our job to tell you that you need to get a better answer. This is happening all over the place. Like I said, it is the gift that keeps on giving. The Brune decision, got to be listed as one of the most important firearms cases in the history of the country. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. I mean, just the arguments that some of these people make, and they've got no historical analogies at all. And sometimes they just don't even present any. What was the case that we were talking about last week, the California case, where they presented no historical analogies, and then they said, well, if the judge had told us that we had to, it was like, it's not my job to tell you how to be a lawyer. You didn't provide a single historical analogy as to justify the state's taking in this case. Oh, if the judge had only just told us and only given us instructions that we needed to defend if only we'd known. Okay. All right. Do I need to do all your jobs for you? Is that what you're saying? I need to do all your jobs for you. Oh, man. Oh, wait. Cam Edwards has got a new article up about Kamala Harris. Anytime there's a Kamala Harris article, I've got to read it because this woman is, I mean, she's so unpopular, even among her own party. It's just cringy, isn't it? I mean, isn't it cringy? I mean, nobody even in her party wants to talk about her. This is Cam Edwards. Joe Biden couldn't have picked a better person than Kamala Harris to serve as the ostensible head of the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. She's deeply unpopular, incredibly awkward on the stump, and can't help but make outlandish claims that don't hold up to scrutiny. If Biden wants her to be the face of gun control in his administration, I'm fine with that, especially when it leads to things like this. At an event touting the Biden administration's efforts to curb gun violence, Vice President Kamala Harris said the vast majority of guns used in school shootings came from unsecured locations in homes. On April 15th in Las Vegas, Harris said gun owners have a responsibility to secure firearms so children and young people can't access them. Put it in a lockbox because especially if a young person is just curious and, wants to play with a gun, let's not make it easy to get to. And that's what secure storage is about. The numbers that I have seen suggest that as many as 75% of school shootings resulted from guns that were not secured. Right. Harris's statement contains an element of truth, and the best available data suggests a relationship between unsecured guns and homeschoolings. But her statistic is off and ignores critical facts that would have given a different impression. We rate it mostly false. This is from the mostly false. The PolitiFact fact checkers actually said mostly false. Sorry. Sorry. Oh gosh. I mean, she actually included incidents where firearms were stored securely, but were still stolen by individuals who were plotting a school shooting. This is really one of the next big pushes, by the way, is this secure storage thing. You're starting to see a lot of discussion about secure storage. And that's the whole Tommy Chong thing, right? Remember we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where Tommy Chong was like, "Oh, I just,
Yeah, I got
happen occasionally.
I'm in business with a ex pilot from Vietnam, and I'm quite sure he has a sidearm in his house.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be useless because it's so locked away and so hidden by the time anything happened. By the time he got to that gun and got it loaded and found the ammunition and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, he makes the argument for me, right? It would be so useless by the time. Why do you need safe storage? Is, that's the next frontier. That's where they're going after us next, is on the safe storage side, and everybody's starting to talk about it, and that's why you're seeing. That's where you're seeing this. By the way, how did she come up with that false figure? The U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center report on targeted school violence put together a study back in 2019. It evaluated 41 incidents, including 25 firearms involved, 19 of the shooters. 76% of them got their guns at home. You get 75 or 86 number by adding the firearm from the homes where the guns have been locked up, but that's not the overall number. She actually included incidents where firearms were stored securely, but were stolen by individuals. So she's undercutting her own argument. I mean, go for it. I'm glad she's the leader of this whole thing. She is so cringe-inducing. I mean, just so cringe-inducing. Absolutely crazy. Is the government going to supply me with that nice big Browning gun safe? Asks Brittany. Oh, I'm sure. Hold your breath, Brittany. I'm sure that'll happen. I'm sure they will absolutely be providing you with that. Brian says there's a poll floating around the state with a safe storage question. I know, because there are some legislators now who are working on safe storage legislation. And it needs to die a slow and horrible death. That's all I can say right now. We don't need to do it. Okay, my phone is buzzing. I got to go. Let's get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Okay, it's the weekend. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the weekend. I'm sure that's the same thing Willie Waffle is saying over at wafflemovies.com. We both had to work last weekend, and it's not sitting well with us. It's not good. Hello, my friend. How are you doing? You ready for your Friday?
Oh, dear God, am I ever? Because, I realized last weekend I'm too old to work on the weekends anymore.
I am with you. Too old. Yeah, when I hit that sixth day, I used to be able to work like a freight train. But, man, these days when I hit that sixth day, I'm like, well, I'm really kind of tired. And then if you go for a full, you don't get a weekend at all, then you come back and you're like, man, this weekend, I'm just going to sleep all weekend because you're just trying to get caught up. It's crazy.
That's my hope and my dream.
Exactly. It's pretty tough when your dream weekend is just, I'm going to sleep in and then get up and have breakfast and then take a nap. That's pretty tough. All right. Well, let's talk about some of the hot news today. We got some eligibility stuff for the Oscars, which you can just hit on real quick. But I know you want to get to this whole baby reindeer thing, which is weird. But hey, that's fine. Let's hit it. Go for it.
Okay. I want to tell you the best story that I have seen all week long. And of course, it involves nobody other than Mr. Alec Baldwin. So a few days ago, Alec Baldwin was just out trying to get himself a cup of coffee. Lives down in Greenwich Village in New York. And if you're familiar with what's going on in New York right now, both the NYU campus, which is in Greenwich Village, and the Columbia University campus have tons of protesters, tons of anti-Israel protesters. And so Alec Baldwin just thinks he's going to get himself a cup of coffee.
Right.
When he is, I want to say assaulted. He is assaulted. He is harassed.
Right.
By an Instagram personality who is known as Crackhead Barney.
Crackhead Barney,
and
right.
Crackhead Barney starts harassing him on camera, constantly trying to get him to say Free Palestine.
Just say Free Palestine.
Say Free Palestine.
Just say Free Palestine, Alex. Just say Free Palestine, and I'll let you. Just say it. And to which point, I'll be honest with you, Alec Baldwin, not my favorite guy and everything else, but I mean, I might have punched her in the face. I mean, at some point, I just would have been like, say free dentist. I mean, it would have just been like that for me. It was pretty, like you said, it was assault.
It's assault. And here's what makes it worse. And this is where it got out of control. When Crackhead Barney said, "Hey, Alec, why did you kill that lady?" And at that moment, he grabbed Crackhead Barney's phone and they spilled out onto the streets. And he basically said, "Get the cops, get this idiot out of here." Got his coffee and walked away.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't think he's a great person. I hope he gets, I hope that the justice prevails at the trial, et cetera, et cetera. But man, when somebody's up in your face, and he ignores her for a long time. I mean, he tried. He tried his best to just ignore it and keep going, and but that was just, and you know what? That is the unemployed, fatherless behavior you would expect from some of these people on Instagram and stuff, where they just, say this, say this, say this, say this. I'm just going to stand here and do that until I punch you in the face and then you go away. That's what's going to happen, because I'm not going to, I mean, and why any business would allow that in their business? That's mind blowing to me.
Now to their defense, it looks like a manager or an owner of the business did try to separate them.
Right.
And did try to tell Crackhead Barney, "Get out of the store. You're harassing a customer." And it just kind of just escalated. And I'm with you. Okay, let's be honest. There was a time in America where Alec Baldwin could have punched that idiot, and everybody on the jury would have said, "You had it coming."
Not guilty. Yep, exactly.
And I think that's part of the problem in America. There's no repercussions for idiocy. Yeah. There's no repercussions when you put somebody in their place because you laid hands on them, you assaulted them, you broke the law. Okay, we used to look the other way at a lot of stuff like that, justifiably at times. And that's what I really get upset about, because I'm with you. When he said, "Hey, why did you kill that lady?" I'm sorry, that's grounds for a punching.
Yeah, no, it's Yep. Yeah, and he, like I said, he may be a horrible person, but nobody deserves to be harangued like that in public and not have some kind of recourse. All right, Kevin Bacon, he gets Footloose again for the last time.
Yeah, and this is actually this is actually like, pardon me, our heartwarming story of the week.
Right.
So more than 40 years ago, Kevin Bacon became famous for Footloose, and they filmed it at a high school out in Utah. Well, since then, the high school has been desperately trying to get Kevin Bacon to come out, do an event, celebrate with him, do something. And finally, this year, Kevin Bacon went back to Payson High School in Utah because the school's getting torn down. It's the last prom. And Kevin Bacon was dancing away, baby.
Oh, that's right. They got him up on the stage. He did all the thing. The whole theme was Footloose and everything else. They've been bugging him to come back for years, though. This is the first time he's come back.
Yeah, first time he's come back. And they did a whole thing for his charity out of it, which was really, really nice. And I think, Kevin Bacon is a decent guy, and he realized this is the special moment to go back. It's their last prom. They're tearing down the school. Right. And he said, he loved coming back and seeing all these places and thinking about making the movie and all the ways that it's impacted people and all the wonderful things people say to him about the movie. He's like, I'm really glad I did this. And, I'm glad too. It was time, people.
Yeah. It was good. All right. Okay. Well, good. That is a feel-good story. I like that. And it's good that everybody's happy in the end. Okay. Well, let's talk about baby reindeer. Now, we mentioned this last week, but apparently it has become even more of a phenomenon since last week. Tell me about baby reindeer, which is the dumbest name I've ever heard. But okay. I mean, go ahead. Tell me about baby reindeer. What is this about?
I'm here to change your mind about baby reindeer. I'm here to tell you this is the hottest thing on Netflix right now, and for darn good reason. It is an amazing television series. So the story is you got Richard Gadd. He's the guy who also wrote it and directed it. I mean, this is his thing. And he plays this bartender who thinks he's a comedian. And he's trying to make it big in comedy, and he stinks. Well, one day, this lawyer comes walking into his bar, played by Jessica Gunning, and she's a little middle-aged lady, little larger lady, and as you're talking to her, she seems nice and charming, and she seems to have very interesting stories about the work that she does in politics. Except you're starting to get the feeling that maybe she's a little wacky, a little unhinged, and as every episode goes by, you realize she's full-blown trouble, and she starts stalking this guy in his life, and you don't know how he's going to get away.
Yeah, she is
so good.
This is like the rabbit in the pot boiling kind of weirdness, right? I mean, tell me this is just like full on stalker mode, and you're gonna have to deal with this.
Yeah, and and what's really interesting, I love what Gad has done with his character, because he's trying to be a nice guy. Like, she's obviously got troubles. She's obviously hurting. As he's digging into her life, he's learning things that make him feel sad for her, but also scare the living daylights out of him, because he starts to realize what he's dealing with. And and there are many times in this series where you're like, dude, why don't you just walk away? Like get out of this now before it's too late. Well, it becomes too late. And now she's destroying his life and his relationships and his career and everything. And you wonder, how is he going to escape? I'm telling you right now, I'm like at 4 waffles. You've got to watch this.
You're
It's
like
so
4.5
good.
waffles. Yeah,
It's so good.
I've heard good things. I mean, IMDb is like 8.5, and Rotten Tomatoes is like 100% score, which you don't see. So
No.
I mean, I know it's supposed to be good. I guess I might have to put it on the list. All right, I'll put it on the queue. You talked me into it. I'll put it on the queue. Baby Reindeer, which again, the whole, it's one of those things where you're like, why does and I'm sure the name probably makes perfect sense later on, but it's like,
it makes sense.
Yeah, but you're like, why would you name a show, or, I mean, I guess other than to pique somebody's curiosity. It's all it's about. So, all right. Well, that brings us over to the shows in theaters, on Netflix. We got 3. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, let's go low to high. How's that sound?
I always like low to high.
So So my first low, and it's not that low, Dead Boy Detectives, which is another title where you're like, oh God, that's going to be so stupid. And it turns out it's not too bad. It's these 2 dead teen ghosts, 2 teen boys, Edwin and Charles. One died back in like 1916. The other one died in the 1980s. They've become friends, and they have basically a detective agency. And they try to help other ghosts, solve crimes, find out what happened to them, help them find some peace in their lives.
Right.
And as they move from case to case, they start having other people joining them, their friends. We see all the wild characters in the other world that they're dealing with, and you know what? It's pretty interesting. I think that, you've got kind of a witty show. I think it exceeds kind of your typical, pretty boy teen kind of TV show, right? They're a little bit deeper than just being the haircut of the month, okay?
Right.
So, and you start to see how much they really care and how much they want to help these other lost souls. And we're starting to see like who their nemeses are, who their new allies are, and their history and the things that have happened to them that compel them to try to do the best they can, and all the while trying to avoid death, because death wants to take them away, and they're kind of having fun on planet Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm at 2.5 waffles. I'm enjoying it.
That's good. Now, of course, this is based on a comic that was written by Neil Gaiman, right? Stardust Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
I mean, this is a well-known. He's done some amazing stuff, Sandman and some other things. So, all right, I'm down to check it out. I'll watch it. Dead Boy Detectives, 2.5 waffles. All right, next one, mid to low to high. Where are we at? Mid.
We're gonna go to Unsung Hero.
Okay.
And this is based on a true story. If you're familiar with the band King and Country, or you're familiar with the singer Rebecca St. James, who's the sister of those guys in King and Country, And this is their true story. It's their true story of their family when they were very young. Dad and mom were in the music business, and dad kind of a singing guy, mom supporting him. And they left Australia. They headed to Tennessee. They headed to America to try to make it big. And you see just the struggles that they're having and trying to overcome all the difficulties and trying to find their way and how they're trying to get through all of this with the support of themselves and their belief in their faith and the support that they get from that. And it's just a feel good story. Seeing a family overcoming adversity, fighting and struggling, and then suddenly realizing what their calling is and what that path is going to be for them. I'm at 3 waffles. I thought it was very wonderful. It's a good, warm family movie.
Yeah, no, this is one of those kind of Angel Studios type, very heartwarming, very, so with a kind of a faith-based twist and everything else. And those movies are actually doing really well, which, again, super, super good to see. And I'm happy to check it out. Okay, so let's move on to the final one, which, of course, is Challengers with Zendaya. We got about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes here.
Oh, yeah. So Unsung Hero could be faith-based. I think this one is naughty-based, okay?
Yeah, do not watch this.
This is like the opposite of faith-based.
Yeah.
This is not family-friendly. Yeah. So Zendaya, she plays this former teen tennis prodigy, and she had a horrible injury. She became a coach, and she's coaching a man who is her husband. And he has an old friend, an old rival, and they are going to meet at a tennis tournament. And now we're looking back over the last 13 years to see what led to this match. And it's kind of like jumping back and forth in time, explaining what is the rivalry between these two? What is the relationship between all 3 of them? And that relationship is a little steamy. The little steamy.
This is the adult Zendaya, right? I mean, that's the.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah.
This is definitely. Oh God! Yeah, and but I think that you've got a movie that's. I love this. I love the structure, and I love the storytelling,
Right.
and I like the idea here that you're really seeing that this relationship is about power dynamics. It's like the game of tennis, right? Who's in charge?
Right.
Who's dictating the pace?
Right.
Who's winning? And that's what draws you in. I'm at 3 waffles. I thought it was pretty darn good.
3 waffles, okay, for Challengers, but it is naughty. So don't, if you're easily.
Oh, man, it's naughty.
And not safe for work. NSFW, not safe for work. All right, Willie Waffle, thank you so much, my friend. It's good to hear from you. Folks, we got to go. We'll see you on Monday. TJ Cochran and Nick Begich. Have a great weekend. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I definitely would love to see Unsung Hero, and Dead Boy Detective sounds interesting. I really do. But as much as I think Zendaya is a good actress and everything else, do I really want to watch? Do I need to watch her getting funky with her? I don't know. It might be for some people. It sounds like it's not for me, but maybe I'm just being parochial and old.
I think Baby Reindeer and Dead Boy Detectives is for you.
I can
really
see
think
that.
Those are the two.
I could see that. A little twisted.
I think those are the two.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like it.
And the thing I love about Baby Reindeer, right, is that the way that they put it together, the way that we see the text messages that she's sending him on the screen,
right.
The emails that he's got, the way he's checking out all of her history on the internet, and we're seeing him pull these things up, and we're getting a sense of who this person really is. It's very well laid out, very well told that way. Very, very well done there.
Very visceral as you see his eyebrows as the text messages start, his eyes kind of bulge out. I could see it happening already. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I have made a mistake. I have made a serious error at this point. All right, my friend. Next week, what do we got next week?
That would be The Fall Guy. This is the big Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt start of the summer movie season. All right.
I can't wait. This is not based on the Fall Guy television show, right? This is a whole.
Yes, it is.
Is it really?
In the sense that they stole the title and Ryan Gosling plays a stuntman.
Okay.
That's about the extent
That's about
of how
the
it's
extent.
based on the Fall Guys.
Okay. All right. I'm down with it. He ain't no Lee Majors, but we'll have to see how it works.
No, he's not.
All right. Thank you, Willie. Appreciate it. We'll talk with you next week, okay?
All right. Talk to you next week.
Folks, out of time. Again, be kind, love one another, live well. One of my favorite authors, T.J.I. Cochran is going to be, Travis J.I. Cochran's going to be with us on Monday, and then Nick Begich as well. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Thank you.